So are you fired up?
Yeah. I'm ready to dunk.
You ready? Mike,
Here we go.
you're gonna dunk as well?
I didn't sleep last night. I
Okay.
watched it like 100 times.
Okay, you just had it on repeat?
Yes.
And Commissioner Tim Pernetti is going to dunk as well.
Don't ask me questions you know the answers to.
All right, well, we'll ask you some that I don't know the answer to yet. We're going to start with the brand modernization that the American released back in July. It has been so incredible just to watch the way that it's unfolded. So, a couple of months now, how have you seen it just grow and advance, and what have been some of the conversations surrounding it?
Well, things like that have to be a process. And I
Some
think we're
American
caught up in that
Commissioner
whole
Tim
story.
Pernetti.
When I interviewed for the job, I was on a plane leaving one of the interviews, and I was doing my own research. And so I get on my computer and I connect to the Wi-Fi and I Google AAC. And everything in my Google browser defaulted to ACC. And I remember making a mental note. I'm like, well, that's a problem. And when we started the job, we started to talk about brand. And what we realized right away from talking to hundreds of people on campuses, coaches, student athletes, administrators, was it was just a name. And a brand has to be more than a name. So what we did was we dialed it back. We started a process to modernize the brand. We started with, like, what is the DNA of this league? And, as I've been really lucky to be in this role, and I literally was having more fun than I expected. But the number one thing we're out to do as a conference is be the most innovative conference in America. And to be a first mover on things, and even in voice, whether we do it or not. You remember I was talking about private capital in college sports in April of 2024. Everybody was kind of like, oh, there's no place for that. And now everybody's running a process. It's like intellectual capacity is expanding in our space, which is good. But on brand, we knew innovation was one core tenet. And then I started going out to games. And when I went out and saw women's basketball and men's basketball in our league last year, I walked away with the same word just circling in my head. And it was just grit. It's just a tough ass league. Like, people just get after each other. And, when in between the whistles, there's competition in this league that is not like I've ever seen anywhere else. And what I like too is we're a low ego league. Like, we have big name coaches, new coaches, high profile student athletes, but they do their talking on the court. So grit was number 2, and it was easy. And then third is service. And I think service is an important tenet for everyone, because the conference services the institutions. The institutions service student athletes. The teams and the coaches and student athletes service their communities. And it started this year. Like, we're doing a leave behind in every city where we have a championship. We're doing everything from showing up and dropping off checks to modernize school facilities. We're going to remodel a classroom in a city TBD. We just want to make sure that our student athletes understand how important it is that we service the community, that we're in. And we're going to ask them, like, basketball tournament this year, I might ask teams to show up for 45 minutes and do a clinic for kids in the city. Like, it's just important we keep perspective. So we relaunched the brand as just the American. We dropped AAC, we dropped athletic. Obviously, it's athletic. We're a college conference. And we simplified it. And we also brought a mascot to the table. And I actually know we've arrived, because I was in an airport 2 weeks ago, and I was walking to my gate to catch a flight. Some dude yelled across the airport. He goes, "Pernetti, soar the eagle." He yelled across the terminal. So we are really proud of the work. It took a year, and I think it's simplified and clearly defined who we are.
Well, I think Mike wanted some sort of Eagle merch, so we need to figure out how to get him some.
Get ready for that.
You came to the right place.
That's right.
So what do we
Mike
have?
has some stuff.
Really? You can give us some.
You're in the
detail?
office with me, Maria.
I know,
mean, you
but
should
no
know.
one tells me anything.
It's-
I'm not in the office that much.
It's a surprise.
Okay.
Soar the Eagle's actually going to come to life at the football championship this year. And people are like, why did you, like, a mascot? And when the staff came to me with this, I was the most skeptical. I'm like, we're going to get crushed on social media for this. And then I realized there's no reason not to do it. And then suddenly I'm looking at this image of Soar, and I'm like, this is intellectual property. Like, we can put this in the market. We can create commercial rights around it. We can generate new revenue for the schools, which everybody, like, I'm tired of people not talking about this. Everybody needs more money. We have to just go and find it wherever it is. And 3 months in, we're talking to brands about Soar the Eagle having a soft drink deal and a beer deal and a sneaker deal. Like, whatever we got to do to scratch revenue out of the system to put it back to schools so we can create a better experience for student athletes, we're going to do it.
And we just covered some of the newness of the conference, not only in the brand modernization that you just mentioned, but also the new conference tournament format. So for you, how does that just kind of play into this innovation, the grit, and just creating different things for the American Conference?
Yeah, I won't take full credit for the format. I mean, there's a lot of conferences out there that have been doing things like this. When we started and looked at the basketball tournament, there were a few things that we needed to start with. And the number one, the table stakes with the basketball tournament is I know some of us sitting in the back of the room, student athletes need to be part of an event that feels like a big time championship event. And when I attended the tournament at Dickies Arena this year, they did a great job for us over the years. I'm not going to lie that I did not have that vibe. So it started with, let's find a place or places where we can create a tournament event.
And again, by next year, between from March the 10th to the 15th is the American Championship. Now, this will take place at the Legacy Arena at BJCC in Birmingham, Alabama.
Those spots become more valuable. And by the way, it's more competitive. And by the way, the games in February that are going to be on national television are way more meaningful because you're playing for something that is far more limited than the past. And number one and number two, I've gotten a lot of incoming about this. Like, why are you taking care of some teams? Time out. They've earned the 1 and the 2 spot. Is there no benefit? Like, what happened to actually getting a benefit for earning something? So, 1 and 2 to the semifinal. It's not a new concept. Other tournaments and conferences have been doing it for years. I think it's time that we caught up. I like the way it's set up. I think it's going to set up our semifinals and our championship really well when we have national exposure. And the goal is to get, I hate to disagree with Brooke because I love Brooke, but my goal is to get more than 2 in the NCAA tournament. Like this has historically been a multi-bid league. We have to get back to that. And we've done a lot of work outside of just the tournament format to get back to that.
So we were talking earlier, you can't talk about the revamped championship tournament and not have it directly linked to the NCAA tournament and the importance of that and how it sets up not just getting teams to the tournament, but then you're talking about seeding opportunities as well as why getting a good seed in the tournament is so important from advancing, because when a team advances, the whole conference eats at the end of it as well. But can you talk a little bit about the conversation nationally? It's a hot topic for anybody who follows college basketball, the expansion of the tournament or the potential expansion of the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, it's a hot one for sure, and I'm glad you guys asked it. Everybody has an opinion of what we should do. And the thing about the NCAA tournament that people love and will not be socially acceptable if we change is that, like years ago, a school from up the street where I grew up in New Jersey, Fairleigh Dickinson or St. Peter's, they can beat the Blue Bloods and they can move down the chain into the tournament. People will not accept that that's not a thing in the future. Expansion of the NCAA tournament, to me, is a really challenging topic and really needs to be looked at very closely, and we need to take our time with it because we have a great event the way it's set up. If there's more value in expansion of the NCAA tournament, more value, more money, and not for some, for everyone, then it should be examined. If the media partners are willing to step up, it should be examined. And number two is if that expanded access is for everybody, like that's the thing nobody's talking about. It's like, who's pushing this expansion? What does it mean? Who gets the new slots? If every conference in America has access to those, then I'm willing to sit down and have a conversation about that. If this is about expanding the tournament to benefit some over others, I'm not down with it, even if it just brings more money to the table. We have to preserve the integrity of this thing. The NCAA tournament is a crown jewel, and change is important. Like you want to evolve, but you have to evolve for the right reasons. But I think if we hit those 2 marks, it's worth a conversation.
I think that's well said. I would echo everything that you just said there. And I'm not just saying that because you're sitting next to me right now. I want you to know that. Yeah, that's right. That's right. So the enormous amount of change in college sports athletics, and it's not just with the American, right? It's the 30,000-foot view on it is constant change. That's the only certainty right now. It's from coaches' perspective, players' perspective, fans' perspective. Everything is new. Everything is different. What do you see from Washington, D.C. and SAFE Act, SCORE Act, everything related to how are we going to start moving forward and try to level some of this stuff out?
It's going to take an army. I mean, the fact that Washington, D.C. is involved there's 2 factors to that, right? Part of it is it's a little scary that you have people in government involved. The other side of it is thank God we have the world's attention on something that's so meaningful. Right? So I think we need to thread that needle. And I'm not going to get into details of like, what does the SCORE Act say? What does the SAFE Act say? What's better? Here's the reality. The SCORE Act has some things that are important for the future of the industry. But what we have to emphasize, and I was asked about this by some of the press during the week, is what I came out and said is we need to make sure that we're protecting student athletes' rights and their experience. Because the reality is this, at the end of the day, we turn the lights on and we show up and student athletes are our product. And having had that same experience when I played football in college, it doesn't last forever. And we have a responsibility to them. Like kids that sign up for a certain school, they sign up because I think this place is going to give me the best experience I could possibly have. We have a responsibility to deliver that. But student athletes need to have a seat at the table. I think that's the most important thing. But for us to sustain the business in the future and grow it in a responsible way, you know how this goes in politics. Who's latching their name onto what and why? There's a negotiation. There's SCORE over here. There's SAFE over here. Everybody's throwing some stuff into the middle of the table, and there's a negotiation to be had. But I just encourage everybody involved in this to remember what's at stake, and that's student athletes and their experience. And we cannot lose focus on that. And over the past 4 or 5 years with money and NIL and the transfer portal, a lot of people have lost the focus. Like, we got to laser that back in.
Tim, we've seen so much growth on the women's side with viewership, with branding, with a lot of companies with their buy-in. And it's an exciting time, to be in women's basketball, the business, as a player, as a coach, everything. This conference, one thing I really love, especially the couple of teams that just pop into my mind immediately. Tulane's going to host LSU, USF's hosting UConn, South Carolina, and Duke, I believe. These big-time matchups, how can the American best capitalize on the momentum that the women's viewership is bringing to the table? And then, you've always been a proponent of getting things to feel very equitable in this league for the men's side and the women's side. How can some of those big-time matchups help the regular season and the postseason for both the branding and then the equity of the women's game?
Yeah, and I made a list because I just can't remember everything. But UConn, South Carolina, LSU, Oklahoma State, Illinois, Duke, Vanderbilt, Alabama, Baylor, TCU. Those are some of the non-conference games we're playing on the women's side. And I know some of the women's coaches are sitting out here, and I would just thank them because, I've been a pain in the ass about scheduling. And I've talked about non-conference and how important it is and how we show out in the non-conference. And like that list is just a small list of the bigger list. But on the men's and the women's side, we have stepped up and have the guts to schedule more of those games. Women's basketball, I have a couple of unique experiences. Like when I worked at Rutgers, I worked alongside Vivian Stringer. And Vivian really opened my eyes to the power of this thing. And then when I worked at IMG, we hosted the WNBA during the COVID season. And I spent time with, we were all locked up on the campus taking COVID tests 3 times a day, and I got to know players, and you'd ride your bike around and talk to them, and it really opened my eyes to the power. And women's basketball, it went from being sort of this moment in time to being a full-on movement. It's never had more momentum. We need to capture our piece of that. And part of it is television, and the scheduling, some of the stuff I just mentioned. We have to create more opportunities and less reasons for ESPN to say we're not going to take any more women's games on. Like, I'm pushing that. We want more linear. We want more exposure. We'll give more access, like whatever we have to do. I'm pretty sure if I asked any of the women's coaches out here, like, we want to bring a camera in the locker room for your pregame speech, your postgame.
What's going on
Whatever
down
we need
there?
to do, we'll do. Okay? So that's one. Format is the second thing. Trying to make the tournament, the spots more meaningful. And then, the couple other ones are brands. Like, I can't say who right now, but soon hopefully we'll have an announcement. We're talking to a big brand about an entitlement across all of our women's championships led by women's basketball. And when we sat down with them, they said to me, you're about innovation, and so are we. What can we do to send a message that we're serious about women's sports? I said, this is what you can do. And what you're seeing is you're going to see it with us, and you're going to see it in other conferences as well, which I think is really important. And then events and scheduling. We're working on, Brianna Gladney, who at our conference, and Carl Hicks, who run basketball, we're working on some challenge type events where we're going to pick up our best teams and play against other conferences' best teams. Like, sometimes to create the inventory, you got to manufacture it. And we'll go out and do that. But, women's basketball became a more meaningful thing to me personally because of my own experiences. And everything we're doing, we're trying to focus on creating an equitable experience. but also a better experience. And I just admire the coaches. Like, the games are not sitting out there on the shelf to be scheduled. Like, when I say schedule better, coaches are like, Tim, you think the games are just out there to be had? I know they're not, but a lot of people are taking risks to play up. And I think the result will be we're going to have more teams in the at-large conversation at the end of the year.
And when you mentioned some of those women's teams who have scheduled up, you talk about grit as well. What has really stood out to you in the way that they've embraced it and said, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to make it better for the conference?
Well, everybody has to have an open mind. I think it's easy to say, hey, let's just line up and let's do the best we can. I don't think we have anybody in this conference that feels that way, which is really good. But last year, we took a holistic look at basketball. It was the end of the year. Memphis had a terrific year, and all the so-called experts were like, oh, they're going to be an 8 seed, they're going to be a 9 seed. And I was sitting in the back of the room at our tournament when the seeding got announced and saw their 5 seed. And I called every writer that said it was going to be an 8 or 9 and did an I told you so just for fun. And, in South Florida, don't think because of how they scheduled in the non-conference that they weren't more battle-tested in our tournament. Like, those things, we have an open-minded group. But when I say holistic look, we looked at scheduling. I hired Mike Tranghese, the former Big East commissioner, to come in. And Mike's not only a guy who's got institutional knowledge, he's got massive credibility. And he looked at me and he said, this is not just about your non-conference schedule. You're already on that. You have to make sure the top plays the top in your league as much as humanly possible. He's like, and by the way, if your coaches don't like it, put me in front of them, because I convinced Jim Boeheim and Jim Calhoun and John Thompson, a lot of tougher personalities, to do this. But I put Mike on the phone with coaches, put him on the phone with our administrators, and we took a really holistic look at how do we get ourselves back to where we were. I mean, there are 5 men's teams in this league that played in the Final Four. Okay, and I remember that because it's not like, how do we do something we've never done? We've been doing it. It's happened in the past. So it's just about capturing it back. But sometimes you can't will it to happen. You have to raise your hand and say, I need help. We had Mike come in, and he paid such a huge benefit to the conference just in his voice. But that's where we are. We have a group that's like, we all want the same thing. How do we get there?
And how much does that help when everybody is on that same page and trying to fight for something that will make not only their program better, their school better, but the conference as a whole?
It's essential. I think when I came into the job, knowing it was a consensus building job, you have things you're going to have to get votes on, and you have to get people's support. I was confident, like, we can get people on board with this, on board with that, and I quickly gave up on the 15-0 votes because there's not a lot of full consensus. But in basketball, I would sort of start at who has the biggest megaphone. Memphis won our league last year, and I give Penny a lot of credit because Penny talked about how we can get better as a league. And then Penny, I sat with him in the room and he talked to our coaches about the same thing. And whether it's our veteran coaches or, Coach Robinson and Coach H from USF, we got great new talent coming in. And we have Jose on the women's side. They got to the NCAA tournament. He used his megaphone to talk to our league about what we can do differently, what we can do better. So we have the leadership, and the schools that have made it to the postseason are not making it about themselves. Like, they're using that experience to try to help us as a conference, and everybody in that room wants the same thing. Like in the basketball room, it's consensus. We are a multi-bid league. Let's get it back. What do we have to do to get there?
Glad you brought up Jose as being WBCA president. Obviously carries a lot of weight to it as well with, how much he can use his voice for the game, and how can you kind of collaborate with him in that role for this conference to again raise the level of visibility, make three voices in the league. What does that look like for helping set that up?
I think the biggest part of how we position the American is what story do we tell? And we have to be telling it every single day. You can't just tell it once in a while. It can't be a once in a while thing. It has to be an all the time thing, and you have to keep it in front of you all the time. When I say Penny and Jose, I'm using them as an example, but I could name every coach on the women's side, every coach on the men's side. Everybody has to take part in telling that story. And, maybe this year it's going to be Angie or Diane, on the women's side, and it's going to be, on the men's side, it's going to be Ryan, or it's going to be, Danielle at North Tech. Whoever it is that's in the spotlight needs to take that advantage and take that opportunity to tell that story, right? We'll arm them with all the information, but like for me, people don't want to hear from commissioners. People want the coaches to be out there talking about what's happening on the ground, why it's meaningful, what supporters can do, why this is a great league. So whoever has the spotlight at the right time needs to take advantage of it and do it. And what I think will happen is throughout the year, every one of our coaches will have the light shine on them for a moment. We'll have the opportunity to talk about what's great about this league. But the mechanics are already in place. Are we where we need to be 100% on scheduling? No. Have we made progress this year? Absolutely, we've made progress. And I didn't say it at dinner last night, but the coaches know where I'm at is, like, let's just go show out in the non-conference. Like, the more people are talking about, we've seen it in football this year. We showed out in the non-conference. The American is a national story. If we get a couple of those things knocked off in basketball on the men's and women's side early in the year, my sense is that story will continue to be told, but we need everybody in this league to tell it.
So when a lot of times in business, what drives me absolutely crazy is you might hire a consultant that talks about innovation and they don't actually provide you any details on how to accomplish that. Drives me absolutely nuts. But I have always found there's a direct link to a word that you used, which I think exemplifies the conference very well. That's grit, number one. And it's a direct link between grit and innovation because there are times like, well, we don't have any choice. We have to do something different. We have to think differently. We have to act differently. You talked a little bit about it, but I really care about this, Tim, from this conference perspective. Can you speak more on conversationally, you, your staff, the coaches, on why innovation isn't just something that you just say?
I can. Consultants, there's a lot of really good consultants out there and a lot of people that have great experience, in what they did. And, at the same time, you can surround yourself with the best people in the industry. At the end of the day, you have to execute it. You have to go and do it. Innovation is not a word that I throw around loosely because we have to back it up with our action. And just last year, I've only been on the job. I feel like I've been doing this 10 years. I've been on the job a year and 4 months. And because of the support of the league and the fact that they sold me during the interview process, they were ready to do things differently. And they have walked the walk. From the ADs to the SWAs to the presidents, they've walked the walk. The fact that we're still the only conference in America that set a minimum standard on investment in student athletes on the House settlement it's a proud thing for the conference. And by the way, it was unanimous. Everybody wanted to do that. Like, yeah, we know there's a cap and we're going to try to figure out, like, how does it work? But we have to set a standard. We have to make a minimum commitment to student athletes and their experience. That was one. Instigating the conversation on private capital was another one. For me, I just come out of one of those deals at IMG Academy when we sold it to EQT. But my sense is it's time to look at things that people are not comfortable with or a little bit afraid of. Right? It's kind of like taking a job. You interview for a job, and if it makes you a little nauseous about leaving your thing or what's this going to be and the uncertainty, my sense is always like, that's the job to take. Right? Because there's just uncertainty about it. So private capital is another one. As we've looked at how we've distributed revenue and performance-based revenue sharing, especially in basketball. Like, if you make the tournament, you're going to reap a significant benefit more than everyone else in the league. Like, you don't be shared equally all the time. If you deserve to get more of it, launching a commercial division, American Rise Ventures. We wiped out some third parties, and we launched our own commercial enterprise. For what reason? We want to roll up all our commercial rights in one place. We're going to create an enterprise. We're going to bring outside investment into it. And every school in our league is going to be a shareholder in that business. So as we grow it to 5 to 10 to 20 to $100 million, that's just more revenue and resources that we can bring in. So innovation is a thing that is easily said, it's harder done. But we've done 4 or 5 things already out of the gate that I think back up the talk. And we've got a lot more on the docket.
What are some of the things that you want to continue to do? I mean, you just mentioned 4 or 5 of them, but in terms of innovation and grit and service, how can you continue to build that at the American?
We just have to be reminding ourselves of why we're doing what we're doing. Like this past weekend, I was at Temple for the Board of Trustees meeting on Wednesday, and had a great meeting with their board. And we just talked about everything that's like we're talking about here. Like, Tim, what's going on in the business? Like, help us. How much rev share should we have? Like, you name a question, they had it. And they were great. And then I went to Tulane Thursday night for football, and then I flew to Denton and went to the game Friday, and then I was in Philly again on Saturday and went to Navy Temple, and I saw the same guy at Temple 3 times, and he's like, what are you doing? Like, are you trying to run yourself into the ground? But whether I go to a women's game in basketball or a soccer game, or I hand the trophy out at a championship, I go because I need a reminder every single day of why I'm doing this. And I know why I'm doing it. Like, it wasn't that long ago. It feels like 100 years ago, but you were a student. Like, all 4 of us had the same experience. You were a student athlete, and all you cared about was working hard, playing, your teammates, and having a great experience. So when I go do this stuff, like I'm not trying to travel 200 days a year. It's just kind of the byproduct of it. But if I don't see the reason, if I don't see the why all the time, like I need to see it. And it's a reminder to me. Because at the end of the day, we're a human business. Like Tulane lost Greg Glenn in the offseason. You know, which stuff like that absolutely breaks my heart. Because, you know, I got to spend time with him during the conference tournament, and I know he would have been here at Media Day, and I know what kind of leader he was. But at the end of the day, we're in the people business. And now more than ever, you have to wake up and remember that life's fragile. Like this is just a moment in time. Your life is a series of opportunities. What you do with them is what's most important. But we have to remind ourselves that what the fans see on Saturday is not all that we do.
I think you said that more eloquently than I could have. So, Commissioner Fernetti, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here on the American Tip-Off.
Thank you, guys. Great to be here.
You can catch all 26 teams today. We will talk to coaches, players, so much more. Make sure you stick around here in Birmingham, Alabama.
We'll be right back on the other side of this break.